If I write something right now and I say, this is from the Quran, how have I corrupted the Quran? I could write something right now. I could walk over and insert it in my Quran. Have I corrupted the Quran? No. Why? Because there are Qurans all over the world. Guess what? The same is true of the Torah. If someone says, I don't like Muhammad, I'm going to write a false description of him and claim that it's from God, that hasn't corrupted the Torah. There are Jewish communities across in this time, there were Jewish communities across Northern Africa and in Europe and across the Middle East. You could completely alter one whole entire Torah. That's not even what's claimed here. It's just saying, hey, they said this is from God. So there's no way that this could even possibly corrupt the Torah around the world. Now, even if we argued that somehow someone writing something and saying this is from God would somehow magically affect Jewish communities around the world, guess what? We have copies of the Torah before this, right? We dig them up. You have the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're long before this. So a Jew of this time could corrupt all the Torah he wanted. It wouldn't change the Torah that is buried somewhere.
David mentioned the Dead Sea Scrolls. Did you realize, David, that among the Dead Sea Scrolls, several versions of the Old Testament were found? One, there is a prototype of the Masoretic text, that which became the popular reading. But there is also the Septuagint, or a Proto-Septuagint version. And there is also the Samaritan version, and another version which is unlike anything else that we have come down to us, that we know. So there are 4 different versions of the Old Testament found at the Dead Sea.
The Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. removed 5 items previously displayed as fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls after an embarrassing discovery. They were found to be fake, experts say. Testing shows the fragments were inconsistent with ancient origin. The admission is calling attention to the role of forensic science in making sure ancient artifacts are, in fact, ancient. Chip Reed is outside the museum in Washington. Chip, good morning.
Well, good morning. The Dead Sea Scroll fragments are believed to date back to the time of Jesus. They were found in Israel in the 1940s and 50s, and soon some of the 80,000 fragments started appearing on the market, and some were sold to museums. Now, this museum admits that part of its collection may have been forged. Fragments that were purportedly part of the 2,000-year-old Dead Sea Scrolls have been on display at Washington's Museum of the Bible since it opened last year. But now, technical analysis has shown at least 5 of the museum's 16 fragments, including these 2, are likely forgeries. Museum Chief Curator Jeffrey Kloa.
The questions that have come up have been sufficient enough that we're not confident in displaying them as authentic artifacts.
The fragments in question were purchased between 2009 and 2014 by the Green family, the evangelical owners of the Hobby Lobby chain of craft stores and the museum's largest donor. The tiny fragments were the museum's centerpiece collection, but there were concerns about their authenticity even before the museum opened.
We certainly had lots of questions, but we decided that this was an opportunity to help educate the public about different research methods.
The fragments went through multiple rounds of testing, first in 2016 by a team that concluded the markings were likely not 2,000 years old. Researcher Kip Davis.
The forgeries that I'm dealing with are ancient pieces of leather or parchments that have been written on in modern times.
Further technical analysis by a German company that used X-ray scanning along with ink and sediment analysis confirmed that the fragments are apparently forgeries. The Dead Sea Scrolls are believed to represent the earliest surviving pieces of the Old Testament and are worth millions to museums and to forgers.
A number of these institutions all own their own Dead Sea Scroll fragments and have paid an incredible amount of money.
Some biblical scholars have warned that fake fragments are being marketed to American evangelical Christians. As for the rest of this museum's fragment collection, they say they're going to get them tested, and they will release the results. Gail?
The Museum of the Bible says 5 of its Dead Sea Scrolls are fake and will no longer be displayed. German-based scholars tested the fragments and found inconsistencies with ancient origin. The museum's chief curator officer, Jeffrey Kloa, said, quote, "As an educational institution entrusted with cultural heritage, the museum upholds and adheres to all museum and ethical guidelines. on collection, care, research, and display. Matt Uris for WJZ.com.